Hebrews, it's the Israelite Brotherhood. Israel being Israel for the Israelite Brotherhood. Israelite Brotherhood. Look, Hebrews, I want to do this so you Hebrews can know and show other Hebrews how people that claim our heritage have to fit. They have to fit this history. If they don't fit this history or went through this history at one point in their life, then they can't be Hebrews. And you can check all ethnic groups' history to see if they went through this. And if they didn't go through what the Hebrews went through, then they can't be Hebrews. You see what I'm saying? And everybody got an origin, and it can be shown in the Tanakh history. You know what I'm saying? I could show the Sephardi Jews, whose Hebrew name is Sepharavim's history. I could show them in the Tanakh, and I could show where Ashkenazi come in under the name Chaldean. They made up the Chaldean army. The Scythians did. The Scythians is Ashkenazi code name in history. All right, check this out, Hebrews. For people that's claiming our heritage, if they didn't come out of Egypt, if they didn't come out of Africa worshiping the golden calf, the Queen of Heaven religion. You see what I'm saying? You see that golden calf just, you know what I'm saying, represent about 4, 5 religions. And it's the Queen of Heaven. Okay, if the people history don't match that, or if they didn't break the covenant and lose their identification and culture and everything because of that, then they can't be the Hebrew Israelites. You see, because the Hebrews, you know what I'm saying, was prophesied by the Creator. And that's another thing. If you ain't broke the covenant and went into Africa to worship the Egyptian religion, then it's like you blasphemous in a sense, because to say that you the Hebrews and then you didn't go through the prophecies that the Creator said that the Hebrews would go through, then you all messed up. Then it showed that your history is false. You see, because it was said from the beginning that the Hebrews would break the covenant. If you go to Deuteronomy chapter 31, Deuteronomy 31. Deuteronomy 31. I know it's Deuteronomy 31:16. Deuteronomy 31:16. And the Elohim said unto Moses, Behold, thou shalt sleep with thy fathers, and thou and this people will rise up and go a whoring after the gods of the strangers of the land, and whether they go to be among them will forsake me and break my covenant which I have made with them. All right, and then when you get down to chapter Deuteronomy 31:29, you'll see that Prophet Moses said this: For I know that after my death you will utterly corrupt yourselves and turn aside from the way which I have commanded you, and evil will befall you in the latter days. You know what I'm saying? Evil will befall you in the latter days. And that's what happened to us. And do evil in the sight of the Elohim to provoke him to anger through the works of your hand. You see? And then that happened in the book of Jeremiah. Man, I think like 818, 820 years later, in the book of Jeremiah, the whole Hebrew nation said that they wasn't going to do the covenant no more. You know, if you go to chapter 44, Jeremiah chapter 44, verse 15, 16, 17, and 18, you'll see that the whole Hebrew nation said that they was through with the covenant and they was going back into Africa, because what was happening to us during the Babylonian captivity was because we wasn't doing the Egyptian religion. That was a mindset. We had forsaken the covenant completely. We didn't want nothing to do with the promised land or covenant history. The books, the prophecies are nothing. You see what I'm saying? Our history had to be translated by some people that was occupied in our land. Just so happened our history had to be translated by some Babylonian scribes. By some Babylonian scribes is how our book got in circulation. That's the Creator working in his miraculous ways. Even though our history was blotted out for a long time, it's basically because we blotted it out. but it was sealed during the slavery days. You see what I'm saying? The slavery days kind of like kicked that 400 year in. You know what I'm saying? That 400-year prophecy that a bunch of us believe in. But anyway, if your history doesn't match the Hebrews going into Africa to worship the Queen of Heaven, then you are not a Hebrew. You see what I'm saying? You are not a Hebrew, because the Hebrews that went into Africa, they never returned back to the promised land. They didn't go back to the promised land, and they was the prophet Ezra, Nehemiah, Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi. Those 5 prophets covered the exiles that was taken to Babylon when the millions, the 99%, went into Africa in the book of Jeremiah. From right here on into Africa. You know what I'm saying? And them people never returned when those other Hebrews, the exiles, come back home. But anyway, we was on the Egyptian religion. And if your heritage, your history don't fit within this, then you can't be no Hebrew. That's like it's people claiming our history and claiming our heritage, but they didn't worship no Queen of Heaven. They didn't worship the Queen of Heaven religion. They didn't go into Africa. You see what I'm saying? So those people not Hebrews, and this is what happened to us in the book of Jeremiah. All right, in our last days. You know what I'm saying? All right. This is verse 15. Then all the men which knew that their wives had burnt incense unto other gods, and all the women that stood by a great multitude, even all the people that dwelt in the land of Egypt and Pathros, answered Jeremiah, saying, As for the word that thou hast spoken to us in the name of the Elohim, we will not hearken unto thee, but we will certainly do soever thing go forth out of our own mouth, to burn incense unto the Queen of Heaven, as we have done, we and our fathers, our kings, our princes, in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem. For then we had plenty of food and were well and saw no evil. But since we left off to burn incense unto the Queen of Heaven and to pour out drink offerings unto her, we have wanted all things and have been consumed by the sword and by famine. So we thought, because the Babylonians was getting us, chasing us off the land, it was because we wasn't doing the Egyptian religion. We was on the Egyptian religion for since Jeroboam installed it in 925 BC. In 925 BC, and King Josiah destroyed it, started to destroy it around about 640 BC. We was on it for I think it was like 256 years or something like that. No, 280 some years. Let me add that up correctly. That's how many years we was on the Babylonian Egyptian religion. All right. I should have had that. Yeah, so we was on that Egyptian religion. Yeah, we was on it 285 years. We was on the Egyptian religion from the time that Jeroboam destroyed it. From the time that Jeroboam brought it out of Egypt to the time that King Josiah destroyed it in 640 BC. We was on Egyptian religion 285 years. And then when they killed King Josiah in 588 BC, we was clean of Egyptian religion for 50 years, and then we went right back on it in the book of Jeremiah around about 588 BC. You know what I'm saying? Around about 50 some years. You know what I'm saying? After King Josiah was killed in 621 BC, and then we went to the Egyptian religion. We went into Africa, and that was the last you heard of us. So if your history don't show that you worship the Queen of Heaven religion, coming from the Jeroboam days and from when Moses brung us out of Egypt, we worship the golden calf when that mixed multitude of Egyptians left with us. and kind of kept us throwed off. We was on that Egyptian religion then. So all these people who's claiming to be Hebrews, and then you don't have the history of being Hebrews, it's easy to single you out now. Because you're gonna have to been ran into Africa to worship the Queen of Heaven religion. You see, that's already established that King Josiah cleaned up the religion that Jeroboam had that was prophesied. It was prophesied around about 931 BC. And after King Josiah cleaned it up, if you go to First Kings, I think chapter 12. Let's see. First Kings chapter 12. It's the Israelite brotherhood. Israel been Israel. Israelite brotherhood. Israelite brotherhood. All right. First Kings. All right. First Kings chapter 13. You will see that it says, and behold, there came a man of Yah out of Judah by the word of the Elohim unto Bethel, and Jeroboam stood by the altar to burn incense. And he cried against the altar in the word of the Elohim and said, O altar, altar, this saith the Elohim, behold, a child shall be born unto thee, unto the house of David, by the name of Josiah, and upon thee shall he offer the priests of the high places and burn their bones. And so King Josiah did that. Throughout his life, if you read Second Chronicles chapter 34. Second Chronicles chapter 34. All right, first let's show that, what I'm saying, we already know that Jeroboam brung the golden calves out. So that's, everybody should have that basic history. All right, Second Chronicles chapter 34. All right, Second Chronicles chapter 34 is going to be dealing with King Josiah's history. And, he was that king from prophecy, from back in Jeroboam days. And when he come about, he did everything that the Creator said and prophesied him to do. And after the Egyptians, an Egyptian killed him, Necho. Necho was going to help the Assyrians, and he tried to come across the promised land after King Josiah and cleaned the land up from the Egyptian religion, like trespassing. And they killed King Josiah, and then they put a son on the throne. And that son instituted that Egyptian religion, which we was kind of still on it in the northern kingdom. After they killed King Josiah, we went immediately back to the Egyptian religion. And we went into Africa in the book of Jeremiah. And those people never returned out of Africa because you have the exile prophets. This was during the Babylonian wars and the Babylonian captivity. After we went into Africa and they took the people to Babylon, where they come back, the Persians defeated the Babylon and even had control of Egypt, would have gave us the chance to come up out of Africa and come back to the promised land. But we didn't. And you got the book of Ezra, Nehemiah, Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi. Those 5 prophets cover that 1%, and they didn't record the Queen of Heaven worshipers coming back out of Africa. We are them. See, and then the people that was placed in our land in 722 BC when the Assyrians took the fighting tribes, they placed these people called the Sephardims. That's the Hebrew word for Sephardi. That's the Hebrew word for the Sephardi Jews. You know what I'm saying? You see Sephardim right there. Sephardim. All right. When they was placed in our land in 722 BC, by the time we go into Africa in 588 BC, they'd have been in our land probably about 134 years, and they didn't follow us into Africa to worship the Queen of Heaven religion. See, they stayed in the land, and those are the people who inherited our heritage, because after we said we was gonna do the Egyptian religion, them people had been in our land since 722 BC. So, that's the people that translated our history, and the reason why you got all these Bibles and biblical history and extra biblical books, or books that's supposed to be relating to Hebrew history, is because the Sephardi Jews, the Babylonian scribes that we abandoned our heritage to, was still there. Okay, they didn't go into Africa to worship no queen of heaven, so you shouldn't see no curses on them. That's why come you can see the difference between us and them, because they didn't go into Africa to worship the queen of heaven religion. They shouldn't have the curses on them. But being that they was in Hebrew lands and we abandoned our heritage to them, then you should see them worshiping our heritage and practicing our laws and our history. You see what I'm saying? That's why the Jews practice our history and stuff, is because we abandon our heritage to the Sephardi Jews. And Ashkenazi come in Second Kings, Second Kings chapter 25, verse 26. Show that, you know what I'm saying, when Ashkenazi come in with the Chaldeans, and all the people, both small and great, and the captains of the armies arose and came to Egypt, for they was afraid of the Chaldeans. So the Chaldeans, uh, uh, we abandoned our heritage, you know what I'm saying, to all them people. It was a bunch of more people that lived in the promised land too. It was all kind of people pulling up. When we was up under that Egyptian religion, all kind of people snuck into the promised land on us. And then when we went into Africa, some more people moved up. So, man, we just created a whole big old mess, us Hebrews. But the people that try to claim our heritage, you can see the difference, because they shouldn't have no curses on them. They shouldn't be shipped to no promised land. And then the Jews, the Edomite Jews from Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and them parts, John Heineke's converted all the Jews of Edom, and then they went throughout Yemen, into Egypt, Yemen into Ethiopia, and all throughout Africa. They even settled in, some of them settled in southern Africa, the Limbas. You know what I'm saying? They come off of Edomite source. So it's a whole lot going on, Hebrews. But the Israelite Brotherhood, if you watch some of these videos, you're going to learn some Hebrew history. And you're going to learn some history that the other people ain't going to even talk about. They don't have no idea to talk about. See, we can show you the difference between Jewish history and Hebrew Israelite history. Jewish history going to be all the people that claim our heritage, that don't have no curses on them, that don't have nothing to do with the Queen of Heaven religion, and going into Africa and being enslaved from there, took into strange lands, and their whole identity blotted out. See, if they didn't go through that, they can't be no Hebrews. You can't be no Hebrews. You can't rewrite biblical history. Is already wrote, and you have to fit that. If you don't fit that, then it's, it is what it is. All right, shalom, Hebrews. This Israel being Israel for the Israelite Brotherhood, but I'm showing you the difference between Jewish history and Hebrew Israelite history. A lot of people claiming our history, but we have to start making the difference and showing them the difference so they can fall in place. See what I'm saying? See, we got to lead the way. We can't let the knockoffs lead the way. You see what I'm saying? Because then it ain't going to be right. So we have to lead the way. So we have to lead the way by knowing truth, so we can show them where they fit in at. You see, ain't nobody showing this but the Israelite Brotherhood. This a new order. Shalom.